A very warm welcome to all our listeners around the world. My name is Tony Tukumbo Eteka Fernandez. I'm a published writer and poet, international community blogger, and events consultant. Over the last 7 years, we've organized the Black History Month celebrations at the UK House of Parliament for 7 years in a row, ever since 2013. An event which has attracted community leaders, role models, and people from different regions around the world. Now, unfortunately, this year, due to parliamentary regulations and the COVID challenges, we were unable to organize Black History Month at Parliament at the Jubilee Room in Westminster like we normally do. So, for the very first time, we're bringing you our Black History Month anniversary virtual celebrations live on Zoom. And it's great because we can get people together, share the same space, and make the world a better place. We have some amazing speakers this evening lined up. We're going to educate you, inform you, and entertain you. Sit back, relax, pour yourself a glass of wine because you're going to enjoy it. And I can assure you the end of this evening, you're going to feel very inspired by many of these speakers. The theme of this evening is the importance of celebrating our untold stories as part of Black History Month. And so we're going to have inspirational stories. We're going to have untold stories. We're going to have African poetry. We're going to have storytelling from the heart. And we're going to finish this month in a very, very, very nice way. For me, Black History Month is all about promoting our own narrative, and I hope we continue to do so in years to come. Special thanks out to our media partners for making this event possible. Star Radio UK. Star Radio UK is UK's number one finest African radio station. They're going to be streaming this show live on various multiple channels. Special thanks also to Baylor World Online TV, who's also going to be streaming this show live on various platforms. And so they're here today to make it a very, very glorious occasion. I've also got here a booklet. Yeah. This booklet explores the journey of organizing the Black History Month celebrations at the UK House of Parliament for very many years. And it's a story of great community leaders, people making a difference, people who've been making a difference over the years in Parliament. It's not about me, it's about the community. So you can grab yourself a copy. My vision is to try and make sure I get this booklet into schools and libraries in the UK and different regions in the years to come. So, in case you want to grab this booklet for your kids or for your parents or for your loved ones, you can contact me on +44 788. That's 0788 280 9005. And also, just to round off the month, also leading up to Christmas, we also have my little book of Christian poems, which I launched this year. You can get yourself a copy also on the same number. Today is all about celebrating Black History Month celebrations. Without wasting much time, we're going to call on now the MP of Newcastle Central, MP Chi Onwura. Welcome her to this occasion. A big welcome, MP Chi Onwura. You're welcome to our Black virtual celebrations. And I know that you've
Uh,
attended our events in the past at Parliament, so it's nice to have you here. You're looking radiant.
and I actually am in Parliament. I'm in my office in Parliament, waiting to hear from the Prime Minister. Actually, on our next lockdown. So I'm celebrating Black History Month in Parliament at least.
Oh, yeah, it's beautiful to see you. And we know you have to run off soon to take part in that meeting. The theme of this evening, however, is the importance of celebrating untold stories as part of Black History Month. How important do you feel it is for us to celebrate our untold stories as people of color?
I think it's really important for me. That's one of the great reasons for Black History Month, and why I'm so pleased to celebrate it. And so, it's sad. This is it coming. It's coming to an end. And I grew up in Newcastle in the 70s, Newcastle in the north of England, and I went to fantastic local schools where I learned about local history. It was one of the reasons why I wanted to be an engineer, because of our great local engineers like Stevenson and Parsons. But I learned nothing about Black history, and that meant I would have been hard put to name like a dozen famous Black people outside music or sports, and the knowledge of Black achievement was limited to those two sectors and a few walking parts. In the great histories of nations, generally the Black people were either hapless victims or stereotypical villains. And so I didn't know that Martin Luther King, that Newcastle University was the only university outside of America to honor him in his lifetime. And he actually had come to Newcastle when I was a toddler and given an amazing speech, which you can find online, which is a call to international solidarity and a call to arms to fight against racism. And I also didn't know that Frederick Douglass, he's the famous American anti-abolitionist and famous American abolitionist, and probably the most, he freed slave. He was probably the most famous Black person of his time, and he'd lived and lectured in the 1840s. And I also didn't know, that there had been African soldiers garrisoned on Hadrian's Wall in Roman times. And I think, if I, as a kid, knowing those untold stories, as you put it, would have given me so much more, confidence in myself and my potential for achievement. So for me, that is really why Black History Month matters. It's important, to show the diversity of achievement, to tell these stories, but it also means that, for example, my achievement of being Newcastle's first Black MP, and a telecoms engineer who, this put into context, I'm no longer some kind of outlier, but I'm standing on the shoulders of the many, many Black heroines and heroes of our shared past. And just to finish, that for me is why it's so important to see Black history taught in schools. And I want young boys and girls in the UK to know about our shared Black British history, which is so diverse, so inspiring, goes back, centuries, indeed millennia, for thousands of years. And that, that is the message, to celebrate the contribution of Black British people to our history, to all our history.
That's fantastic, and that's some beautiful achievements there. And we know you as the MP of Newcastle Central, but who is Chi Onwurah when you look back at yourself and think about your untold stories and how those untold stories have inspired you for like greater heights to come now and in the future?
Well, so as the untold stories of Martin Luther King and of other, there's also great British Black achievements as well. Those are the story. Those are the stories that helped inspire me.
Okay, beautiful. And now we've got listeners around the world today, because this is being broadcasted on multiple social media channels. We've got a lot of young people also listening around the world today. So what message do you have? Because we're coming to the end of Black History Month now, what message of hope do you have for the young ones, even the old ones, about how they can promote the narrative of what they do today to make tomorrow a better place as part of Black History Month?
Well, I think the message of hope, as you put it, is that we are learning across the Black Lives Matter movement, which is sort of was sort of exploded this year. That is a movement. It's an international, it's a global movement of people of all backgrounds, really, but particularly supporting African heritage people, and highlighting the stories, the tragic stories, for example, where George Floyd, who was murdered. It's not tragic stories of murder, but also the fantastic stories of people coming together, of supporting, of demonstrating, and of all the the movement for change. And what I also think is, because I was on the National Executive of Anti-Apartheid for many years, and that was probably the most successful mass movement in history. And we now have an opportunity, if you like, a moment to, as so many young people around the world have been inspired and engaged, to get more involved, to demonstrate, to also get involved in politics, in your own country, and particularly in Nigeria and in the UK, and to let's make racism history. Racism should be a kind of barbaric historic practice that we teach in schools, but we no longer see in our lives, and that's what, I think that's something that inspires many people, including myself, and that's something that this next generation can really achieve around the world, and that's what we should be working towards.
You've heard it all. Wise words there from MP Chi Onwura, MP of Newcastle Central. I know you've got to shoot off for your next meeting. It's been a pleasure having you
Great.
on.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
You're welcome. And have a lovely day.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Take care. So nice words there from MP Chi Onwura as part of our Black History Month virtual celebrations. Well, hope you're all relaxed, enjoyed, and going to listen to more speakers in there. Now we're going to go live now to Manchester, because we've got another important speaker based in Manchester. He grew up of London. His name is Mr. Ishmael Lee South. He is the director of the Salam project, and he's got his fingers in so many pies. He's involved in so many things. I mean, you see his name all over the place on various social media platforms, various initiatives. He's one of these guys who likes to create things from the scratch to make it inspirational for our youth. So Ishmael Lee South, it's a pleasure to meet you again. And I'm sure the listeners are yearning to know a bit more about Ishmael Lee South. Now, you are a man of untold stories. So can you tell us a bit about yourself and the untold stories that occurred in your past, which you repeat again and again in your lectures to make you where you are today?
Good evening, Tony. Thank you very much for that nice introduction. And it's an honor to be speaking here at your annual event, even though it's online, but I've always wanted to speak at one of your events at the Houses of Parliament. Yes, basically what it is, I left school and I used to I had aspirations to work in the British London stock market. So I used to work in the banking arena. So I used to work for NatWest Bank. And while working in NatWest Bank, I of course, like everyone, you face certain hardships, but I overcame them. And while working for NatWest Bank, I must say I did get offered certain management roles that I never take. Sadly, due to my nephew, a few cousins, and a few school friends who got involved within the criminal justice system, this got me, without planning, involved in youth and community work. And in getting involved in youth and community work, I started to find more purpose, more passion, more love, and more respect in the youth and community sector. And while doing that work within the youth and community sector, criminal justice sector, as a social entrepreneur, as an independent one, this is what got me into this work. And then in doing the work, I found out that many of our people, especially people of African, Afro-Caribbean people in the UK, are unaware of their history, unaware of their identity, and unaware of the great contributions of African and Afro-Caribbean people in the UK. Okay.
That's beautiful. And so with these stories, and you've managed to manage projects all over the country, in Manchester and in London and various regions. What are those inspirational lessons you've learned along the way, like the three greatest lessons you've learned along the way, which can be an inspiration for people listening in today?
One of the most inspirational stories in the work that I do in London and Manchester, Birmingham, around the country, is that there are many people of African, Afro-Caribbean heritage who are doing good work in the community to help our young people, help our women, and help our vulnerable people. And they're doing it independently. They're not sitting down waiting on the government funding. They're not sitting down waiting on council funding. They're not sitting down waiting on anyone else. They're using ingenuity. They're using, they're being resourceful. So people like Dexter Sims of Muller Cake Foundation, he set up a clothing label and he set up an online, urban PR company. And from the money that he generates from these two financial streams, he's able to set up a children's summer school in holiday schools. And he doesn't need no funding from the government, no funding from the council. I find him inspirational. I find people inspirational like Brother Rashid, and whereby he does his normal legal work as a lawyer, and a percentage of the money that he makes, he gives training to young people that want to get into the law field. I find people inspirational like Mohsin from Manchester, Moss Side. He does a lot of community work where he self-funds the money, and he does a soup kitchen in the heart of Moss Side. So people like this, I find inspirational. They're using their ingenuity, they're being resourceful, and they're helping their community.
Fantastic. And is there something you would like to share with all our listeners around the world today? I mean, a presentation, anything which can leave them thinking, food for thought.
Yes, I'm doing a summary of a presentation that I do during Black History Month. Before, I used to do presentations about Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and Muhammad Ali. But personally, I'm from Britain at the end of the day, and I find out there's many of us in the UK, we could quote Malcolm X, we could quote Martin Luther King, but most of us are unaware of the great contributions and the great trailblazers from the UK of African and Afro-Caribbean heritage.
Yeah, beautiful. Okay. And also, we would like you to tell us, before you leave, a bit about the Salam project, how people can get involved, and also the free initiatives out there which people will want to know about, especially those living in the UK and in the diaspora.
Okay. Yeah, wonderful. Through a wonderful team that I have with me, we do a mentoring project for mothers and parents for young people. So if there's a young person going through issues around underachievement in school, going through issues of getting into trouble or having a lack of a role model, I've got a great team of volunteers who are mentors, and they mentor young people. And also I've got a great team of tutors who provide support. And all of this, because of this COVID issue since March, has been done via Zoom and Skype, like this event here. And to be sustainable, we haven't been asking for funding. We've been like, because we understand that parents, they spend 200, 300 pounds on Xbox. They spend 500 pounds on Gucci and Nike. So we have to be sustainable. We charge parents as a reasonable and affordable fee. So that's our main project. And a project that we're going to be working on from December is stop and search awareness for our young people. We will be going into Sunday schools, going into churches, going into madrasas, going into youth clubs, and giving young people emotional intelligence training and conflict resolution training and how to deal effectively with stop and search.
You know, each time I look on social media, I see various initiatives you're involved with popping up here, popping up there, and all that. And since we have all our listeners here today, and also people on various social media platforms, especially with reference to the youth in a time like this, talking about sustainable initiatives.
Yes.
If people want to get in contact with you to know more about your initiatives, or because I know you've got various mentees, you've got people you mentor, but you've also got all this wide range of initiatives. So if people want to get in contact with Ishmael the South about these amazing initiatives you do, how will they reach you?
Right, the best thing they could do, they could go on our Facebook. They could go to my personal Facebook under Ismail Lee South, the spelling ISMAELLEA South, or they could go on our Facebook, our Instagram, our Twitter, our LinkedIn under the Salam Project. So it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram /THESALAM project.
Okay, and on a final note, because I know you've got some other Zoom initiatives lined up this evening.
No problem.
Message do you have for all our listeners today as we wrap up Black History Month especially?
Yes, what my main message is, we have to understand and remember Black history is not confined to 1 month, even though I recognize that there's many of our people and within our local communities and wider communities who only start to realize certain issues only in Black History Month. But we have to realize that if we want to benefit our communities, we shouldn't be able to be sitting down and waiting for other people to do for us what we should be able to do ourselves. And we have to realize the best resource that we can do to benefit communities, and it could be as a vocation, it could be as an aspiration, it could be as a business, as a social enterprise. The best resource is to be resourceful and to utilize ingenuity and utilize our brains. The same way we utilize it to do work and so forth, we can utilize that to start up youth care programs, start up women empowerment programs, start up vulnerable people support programs. We shouldn't, too many times I'm meeting people and they say, oh, I can't do that, I need funding. I can't do that, I need funding. We need to get out of that mind frame, because we had great people like Mary Seacole. She was a very resourceful person. She was self-funded. We have people like Marcus Garvey, who was a very resourceful person. And we had also Deuce Muhammad Ali from who's a Sudanese British person, very resourceful. We've got people like Tony, who's doing great work in the community. And I see that you're being very resourceful, utilizing Unity, and we need this to spread as around the communities around the country.
You've heard it from Ishmael himself. We need it to spread around the community. We need it to spread around the world. The change we make today is in our hands. So let's make it happen. Ishmael himself, it's always a pleasure being with you.
Likewise, sir.
We wish you the very best.
And you too, sir. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. So that was Ishmael himself. We're warming up slowly because we still have some amazing speakers this evening who are going to blow your mind completely. Now we finished from Manchester, we're going to swiftly move down to Liverpool, where we're going to be speaking to a 14-year-old girl called Latoya Likambi, originally from Cameroon. She's 14 years old. She's written 3 books. She's written and published 3 books. She published her 3rd book only this year. And I gather she's Liverpool's youngest writer so far. So can we have Latoya Likambi?
Thank you very much for having me. My name is Latoya Likambi. I'm the author of 3 books. There's Short Stories by Latoya Likambi, which is a series of moral stories which come in handy for young children. And then my series, which is Casey's Diary. There's Casey's Diary and then Casey's Diary and Anderson Adventure. And there are many messages in all 3 books, and some key messages that we come across in the books are things like confidence building, self-esteem building, and acceptance. And I think how this links into Black History Month is the part of acceptance, because one of the main characters in all the stories is a girl called Casey, and she's an African-American Black young girl, and she struggles to accept herself and she loses her confidence. Like, she used to have such a high amount of self-esteem and she lost it as she grew older. And in between my 2nd and my 3rd book, she finds herself going in and out of accepting herself and in and out of finding who she is. And I think this links to Black History Month because not only does she need to accept her personality and her family, but she needs to accept her heritage. And I think this book inspires many young children to be themselves, to be confident, and not just be confident with their personality and being unique, but like being confident in their skin color. And I think that is very important, especially in today's society where many children suffer from bullying or struggle with peer pressure and things like that. And I think it relates to loads of young people. Loads of kids or teens have came up to me and they've told me that they really find the books relatable, and it also includes like tips and tactics of how to tackle these things, such as bullying, peer pressure, and so on.
Yeah, Latoya, we're very, very proud of you. And I remember last year you were actually our youngest speaker at our Black History Month celebrations at the UK House of Parliament. So we continue to be proud of you. Now, your themes are very, very mature. You know, you have the theme of self-acceptance, identity, very, very, very strong themes that tell me that you're very, very observant of your environment and what happens around you. Many of these strong themes that run through your book, how relevant are they in the society we live in today?
I think
Do
they're
you think
very
there's a big problem?
Yeah, it is. And it's a very common problem as well, because the reason why I wrote these books firstly is because like I see these things happening around me. So that's how you know that it's like very common. And that's why I wrote the book, so that people can relate to it. And not only will they be able to relate to it, but they'll be able to tackle these things. And like it's a thing that we see many young girls and young boys going through, especially with social media, and there's loads of bad influencers out there who are giving people the wrong message, which breaks people down and breaks their self-esteem down. And I also do other things like confidence building classes, and I do that on my website, which is www.likambiglobalpublishing.com, where I also help children who really have like they've had a dream to write and inspire others, as well as just writing, and they have no one really there to like support them with their goals, because when you want to get something done and you want to inspire others, you need someone to support. And many children, they don't really have that support, especially today. So that's why I do that, to help other children.
Talking about the lack of support in today's society now, when people are not very, very self-confident when it comes to having self-esteem, self-assurance, or even believing in themselves, how important is it that we have role models and mentors out there to set the way and also to set out the right message?
I think it's very important, because if children who are growing up now that are going to be like, they're going to be like older in the future, and most of them are going to be leaders of the future, if they don't know who they are and they're not confident, then they can't accept. And if they can't accept themselves, they won't be able to accept anything anyone else tells them, and they'll easily get broken down by other people, what other people say to them. And I think that that means that like the future society is going to be very weak, and it will be chaos kind of.
Okay. And also on a final note, Latoya, if people want to get in contact you for Black History Month, do they contact your mother, or are there any social media handles out there they can reach you to get into touch with you to get those books?
Yeah, I have my social media, which is, I have Instagram, which is just Latoya Likambi, but then most of it, where like everything's going on, is on my website, which is www.likambiglobalpublishing.com, which is where I hold all my confidence building classes, all writing competitions. And I'm currently holding a writing competition for young children right now, and you can enter and you'll be able to publish your own book with me. And I'm also doing loads of other things from time to time, like giveaways and giving away my books and just helping children. And not just so I can inspire them myself, but then so they can go on and like inspire other people.
We remain proud of you, and we urge you to keep up the great work you're doing at the moment. On a final note, before you go, are there any initiatives you've got lined up for the end of this year or for next year? What are we expecting from Latoya?
By the end of this year, I have got everything planned for what I want to get done next year. For next year, I think I want to get about, all right, I'm putting this as a goal for myself, so I have to get 2 or more books published. My website for one of my companies, which is Tazai Cosmetics, I do this company, and it's 100% organic products, and they're all natural. And I do this because I want young ladies and girls to feel confident in their skin, not just to cover themselves with makeup, but to embrace their flaws. So I want to publish the website for that. I also I'm going to start posting more on my YouTube channel to help other young children. And I'm hosting loads and loads of giveaways with my upcoming books. And then hopefully I will do more competitions with the books as well, which is on www.lecambiglobalpublishing.com.
Keep up the amazing work. We're so proud of you. Have a lovely evening. Say hello to mommy and daddy. And there's more for Latoya Likambi to come this year and many years to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. So you had it. That's Latoya Likambi, all the way from Liverpool. We're going to move now swiftly on to New Jersey to speak to my brother-in-law, who's married to my sister. His name is Roger Okewole, and he's a visionary of Niger pop arts. Roger Okewole, it's lovely to have you here this evening. You and family haven't been able to make it to Black History in Parliament in the previous years, but the beauty of virtual is that we can see you all today, and all our listeners around the world are eager to know a bit about who is Roger Okewole and what is Niger Visionary all about.
Well, it's very ironic that I finally get to attend this event during a global pandemic that prohibits travel. And it's also a testament to the quality of your speakers and the beauty of technology that I'm able to enjoy and get as much as I am out of the different speakers. So far, it's been very, very impressive. I hope I measure up. I hope I measure up. But thanks for having me.
I think the listeners around know that you measure up and beyond. So we're rest assured.
Flattery will get you everywhere with me, Tony. But thank you very much for having me. Yeah.
Okay. So who is Roger Okewole and what is Niger pop arts all about?
Well, Roger Okewole is Roger Okewole wears a bunch of hats, apart from, of course, husband and father. I'm a civil engineer with over a quarter century of experience in commercial project management. I run construction projects. I've run construction projects up and down the eastern seaboard of the United States. Right now, I'm senior project manager on a development on Wall Street, and where we're doing a repositioning on a 25-story building. And Roger Okewole is also a graphic artist and a comic book fan and a action figure collector. So I wear a bunch of hats. Roger Okewole is a Black professional in the United States of America who started school in Nigeria, moved over to the States, finished my degree at Temple University. And in my time here as an immigrant, I have seen a number of the different sides of living in America as a Black person and as an immigrant. And also it has given me a real perspective on my time growing up in Nigeria. And that in a nutshell is Roger Okewole. Did I freeze up?
Roger, I think we have an issue with Tony's connection.
Okay.
So yeah, so I don't know if you don't mind just continuing, like, telling us a little bit more about what makes Roger tick.
No problem. I'll continue. So basically, what happened is this all started with two things. Number one, it started with the birth of my daughter, which I'm sure is something that a lot of people can identify with, and then it continued with the start of my graphics company. And how the graphics company really started was, number one, it started with me needing an outlet from professional life. And also I was asked to do some graphics for some interactive card games for kids, educational card games that were revolving around the Greek mythological figures. So I did stuff like this one for Poseidon, and this one for Helios, which are Greek gods. At the time, Marvel, you know, the movies that are coming out, and Marvel Comics will put out movies about Thor and Black Panther and Iron Man. And I realized that these things were part of the narrative that Western civilization uses, especially someone like Captain America and Wonder Woman, to push the Western world is superior and narrative. And I thought it'd be nice at least to have youngsters aware that there are other aspects to pop culture out there. Now, my main focus with my graphics is pop art. So it is well within my wheelhouse to try to stretch the imagination in that direction. There are plenty of people that do portrayals of African figures in a pop art way, but I just thought I'd bring my own particular slants to it. So I started something called the African Pantheon Graphics line, where I was going to give some prominence to different deities from different areas. Like this is Asesaya and Nyame, who's a goddess of fertility and a sky god, and they were husband and wife with the Bono people who live in Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire. And what I do with my pieces is I'll show the continent, I'll show the ethnic group, the Bono, and the geographical borders of the country. And the idea behind a piece like this, or a piece like Yemoja, who's with the Yoruba people, in Nigeria, is the idea is as much to sell as it is to just promote to prompt questions. When I exhibit these pieces in galleries, I get as many questions as sales as to who is she, where does she originate from, who are the ladies around her. And the interesting thing with Yemoja is that she's also called Yemaya, and she's revered amongst the Brazilian people, and is also conflated with a Black Virgin Mary. And her attendants are other figures who are also international figures. They're water spirits called Mami Water, who, as you can see here in this part, I show as being from West and Central Africa. And they were like water spirits who were, you could think of them as kind of a West African version of mermaids, who were feared and revered by people who live near riverine areas, which would be, of course, most people. In addition to that, I do things like this is when the third Thor movie came out, I thought it was about time we started playing up some of our own. So I do pieces like this one, which is Ogun, the Yoruba god of war and god of metallurgy and all things that are made of metal. And here, at this time when I did this, Lord of the Rings had already been out, but Game of Thrones was out. And if there's anything that is a testament to playing up the narrative of Western civilization, it is Game of Thrones. It's very insidious because it seems like it's taking place in a fantasy time and place. But if you, like I do, research the making of shows like that, you'll see that they're very much rooted in a mythologized version of Western history. So I wanted to, in my own small way, do some of the same thing. And I do things like this one, Mother Africa and the Caribbeans, which is my take on the diaspora from Mother Africa over on the left and the Caribbean people that spread out from her. A few years after that, this is Anansi, who is the spider god, the eight-limbed spider god worshipped by the Ashanti people in Ghana. But I found out that my mom is Jamaican, and the Jamaican people not only also have folk tales about Anansi, but the folk tales are identical to those that are in Ghana. A few years ago, I was in Lagos, in Victoria Island, and I went to a place called Terra Culture, and I picked up a book called The History of the Yorubas by the Reverend Samuel Johnson. So I started doing illustrations of that book because, again, if you could spin it, I'm in my studio right now, if you spun around, you'd see all kinds of comic books and graphic novels in here. You'd also see the books on Conan the Barbarian by Robert E. Howard. You see J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. You see Stephen King's The Dark Tower. You'll see all kinds of books in here. And I thought it was time that we kind of made books like The History of the Yorubas more accessible, especially where if you research the making of the history of the Yorubas, even as it is an unfinished book, there were forces at play to prevent it from being published. So I started going into the book and I started doing pieces like Oduduwa. And I didn't do him the traditional way, not traditional way, the common way, but I drew him like the godfather of the family, because I imagined if he was in a soap opera, the head of the family. And I had to reimagine the kind of armor that his warriors would wear. These are three of the kings that set out from the original Yoruba kingdom to form their own sub-kingdoms. And I used the bronzes that are currently being borrowed by the British Museum as a model for my designs and for the weaponry. And then like Oramio, one of the kings, the youngest son of Oduduwa, who went on to form the kingdom of Ife. And things like that. So those are the kind of things that I do, in addition to a bunch of other things. And it's all about the narrative. One of the things that's made me proudest is when I finish a piece and my daughter comes to me and will ask me questions about the piece and why I did something. And in a very funny way, actually, when I'm criticized, when my works are criticized for not being quote unquote accurate or not being quote unquote real art, because everybody wants to see, woman by the river feeding baby, carrying calabash, which is not the kind of nonsense not nonsense, not the kind of thing I do. I like that because it at least tells me that you're looking at it, that you're seeing it, and it's starting the conversations, because I feel one of our biggest flaws, at least from my perspective, is that there are not enough conversations about these things. And if I can get a conversation started about why did I draw Shango that way? Why did I draw Oramia that way? Then at least it's something. So that's what I do with Niger Pop Art.
So, Roger, I think due to technological issues, we seem to have lost Tony.
Okay.
But I'll take over from Tony in terms of just asking a concluding question.
Okay.
What do you think is kind of stopping conversations? I mean, you've highlighted some brilliant stuff around, I would never even imagine. I've always grown up thinking Superman, a Superman is a Caucasian person, for example.
Yes.
If I go to bed and I ever dream about Superman, you can imagine what comes up. So
yes.
What do you think? Do you think now is the time that, people are going to start thinking more? Is it the right time that people are going to start thinking about, Africans, Black people in a different, as a superhero, for example, just given.
Well, I was really, really taken with what the two speakers ago, Mr. South, was saying about not just waiting, and also what Tony said about every day is Black History Month. I think what stifles, I don't think that conversation is so much stifled as that there's no basis for it to start. I think that when you have a situation where Thor, okay, keep in mind, I started by saying I'm in construction management. So when you watch the movie Thor and they show Asgard, and they show Asgard with 100-foot high halls, with polished stone floors and marble columns, and the Norse gods are marching around all muscled there, it by itself tells a narrative that is very insidious in talking up Western history in a mythological sense, especially when, if you contrast that with what the typical Hollywood representation of Asian Africa would be, it's going to be quite different. Okay, so what would start that conversation? Well, when I grew up in Nigeria, my father never talked about traditional issues. He was a civil engineer himself, but we grew up in Nigeria, so he didn't have to. Okay, you're surrounded by it. Okay, I am raising my daughter in New Jersey. Okay, I myself, I'm a civil engineer to the core as well, as much as I'm an artist. So the only way things like that would come up is in some kind of pop culture environment. Why? Because I'm not going to sit her down with a bunch of books by Ali Mazrui and say, read these and learn about your people. It has to be absorbed. How do you absorb that in this current environment? It's through social media. She's not going to go to a gallery. She's going to happen upon it on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook or whatever. It's through books like what I'm trying to do with the history of the Yorubas. Even during my research, it was very interesting how much easier my life would be if I decided to do the 13 millionth book about the Greek gods. It would have been so easy. It's amazing how much rich of a culture we have, how much we all know the stories, but how uncodified they are. You read about Greek mythology and you realize that every region of Greece had its own. And then it was all compiled and put as part of the whole history of the Western civilization that was fed to everyone, including schools in West Africa. So schools in West Africa studied the Odyssey and the Iliad and know nothing about Romeo. It's very, very interesting. So I think that in my own small way, I'm trying to at least get someone to look at Yemoja and say, well, why does she have an afro? Women back then didn't have afros. At least that's a discussion. You probably never had a discussion about Yemoja before until you saw my piece. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Fantastic.
Okay, that's fantastic. I'm sorry for the break in transmission there.
You missed my great speech. You missed my great speech. I feel hurt.
Yeah, I'm sure the listeners loved it though. And
so.
do you have some samples of work you would like to show?
I did a whole
listeners around the
slideshow
world?
while you're off. You missed
Okay.
it.
Okay, beautiful. So tell me, if people want to know more about Niger Pop Arts, are there any social media handles? If people want to get your work, get hands of your work, how do they contact you?
It's very simple. On Facebook, 9JA Pop Art. On Instagram, 9JA_pop_art. And on Etsy.com, ETSY.com, just type in Ninja Pop Art and my my shop will come up. If you want to contact me, it's Ninja Pop Art, one word, @gmail.com, and I'll send you the links. And again, as much as it is about sales, it's really about narrative. It's really about discussion. Like, for example, I welcome people telling me about deities from sub-Saharan Africa, which I have not yet done, that they suggest that I do a drawing of. Because here's another thing I found out during my research. The colonization has been so extreme in some parts of our continent that there are folk today that do not know their own mythological figures. It sounds like I'm hyperbolizing, but I am not. I'm actually not. And I'm always making a point to say, when I do these pieces, I'm not doing them as an expert on any African culture. I'm the furthest thing from it. I can talk about the building of a steel structure better than I can about African culture. I'm doing it as a guy who likes comic books, likes pop art, and wants to get people talking. That's what I'm doing.
Beautiful. Talking about Black History Month now, as we come to the end of such a profound month,
Yes.
profound day, and
Yes.
profound history. What message do you have for all our listeners around the world as part of Black History Month?
Here's my message. Now let's go to my other hat. I am routinely, and I mean, I cannot say this stuff, routinely the only Black person on my projects. If I have another Black person, they're usually, not always, but usually a labor foreman or a cleaner of some sort, sometimes a tradesman. When I walk into a higher level senior executive meeting, I am routinely the only Black person. For the longest time, I was also the youngest, but things are changing because we all get older, as you can see from the gray hair. And when Tony says at the beginning that every day is Black history, is about Black history, I say I cannot emphasize that enough. And I don't necessarily mean it in a negative way. It's not about always being on your guard, always being angry, always being ready for insult, but always being aware of the fact, at least in my experience, that you always have to be 5 times as good to be considered equal. I still run meetings now after 25 years and hundreds of millions of dollars of projects in place, like I could be fired at any time. Like I am looked at as less than the rest, not in a defensive way, but because that is the arena in which I exist. That attitude is what has put me where I am today. And that is my message to the young people. Every day is Black History Day. Every day.
Every day is Black History Day. You've heard it from Roger Okewale of Niger Pop Art. Thank you for joining us, and I'm sure our listeners are feeling enlightened today by your presentation, speech, and your message. So keep up the great work.
My pleasure. Thank you.
You're welcome. That's Niger Pop Arts Roger Okewale, all the way from New Jersey. We're slowly coming towards the end of the initiative. We're going to say hello to some well-wishers very shortly. But before we do, we want to bring in also a very young lady. Her name is Jacqueline Waziri from Tanzania. She's the Africa for You Youth Ambassador. She is a published poet, now a published poet. Jacqueline, how are you today?
I am so well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tony, and thank you everyone for this amazing celebration. It's absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much.
For the benefit of all our listeners around the world today, can you tell us a bit about Jacqueline Waziri first and foremost, and also your untold stories as a means of inspiration to many?
Yes, so my name is Jacqueline Waziri, and I am your UK-based poet, spoken word artist, community advocate, and now your Africa for You Youth Ambassador. My story began, I think, from the moment I was born. So just being an African girl, a Black girl, I think I had a voice that I wanted to share with the world, and so much stories to share with the world that so many people, and especially the African youth, and I say African youth on purpose because sometimes we get kind of confused between Black and African. So I stick to African youth because we are all African. So yeah, so I have a voice and a story that I know they can identify with. And I just wanted to put this in writing, and I wanted to put this in stories and to share this voice. And that's when it began. And just me having the gift of poetry, I wanted to put this in a story. And who better than Mr. Tony to kind of help me and guide me in the right directions to put this story into a powerful voice to the world. And here I am today with my first published book, Mwana, with so many stories shared in here for our African youth, leaders, and community. And that's pretty much about me. I just have so much things to say, and it's all in this book.
So that's Mwana by Jacqueline Waziri, your new published book. Before we talk a bit about that briefly, you're going to be reading 2 poems.
Yes.
And I believe the first poem is in memory of George Floyd, who passed away this year, as part of Black Lives Matter. So let's hear that first of all.
Thank you. After coronavirus, back to status quo. The original virus, the silenced one, the 400 years old one, severe and brutal segregated one, visible ignorance in the air minorities choke on, influenced and taught brutality, our reality, humanity pandemic, innocent blood on the same cold hands, time and years on, life forced the wrong out of them, him, a true light switched off, broad day remains lit, a worthy breath blown away, countless others, ugly truth haunts, the nation's spirit choked, but the sound of the heartbeat of every I can't breathe, breathes change. Sons of the sun, it's time to rise again. Chains off, get your knees off my neck. After coronavirus, back to status quo, the original virus. Wash your hearts and the same color blood we share off your cold hands. Chains off, get your knees off my neck. Sons of the sun, it's time to rise again. Thank you.
That's fantastic. And I'm sure you'll continue to do great things in your future journeys to come. You also have a second poem, which is in relation to your homeland, Tanzania. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Tony. It's a very short poem called Tanzanite. It's actually a crystal that we have in Tanzania, and I just thought, what can I relate this Tanzanite to? So it just relates to our melanin skin and just the Black people. Yes.
And before you read that poem, I think just yesterday, the president of Tanzania has his second tenure now for the next 5 years, I believe. Now, speaking about untold stories, the president of Tanzania is someone who has been promoting a great narrative in Africa. But sometimes the mainstream channels don't seem to focus on that. So can we talk briefly about your president of Tanzania and how he's setting the pace in your country?
Yes, sir. So our president, Mr. John Pombe Magufuli, he's just a fantastic leader and role model and an example, not only to Tanzania, but to the whole of the African continent. He's doing such an amazing, outstanding work at the moment. He has given free schools, for example, to the children, to the youth up to the age of 21. And that for me is the best thing that you could do for the youths, because, and as he also said, that just to give a child education is, you're giving them hope, you're giving them the key to life and success and hope. So that's the best thing that he could have done for all our youths in Tanzania. And I'm super humbled and super excited for the children of Tanzania, and hopefully the whole of the continent, the other leaders and other presidents can also follow this amazing work that Mr. Magufuli is doing.
And we wish him a very, very successful tenure in his next 5 years. So Jacqueline, let's hear your next beautiful poem, which I'm sure all our listeners are going to love.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tony. This is called Tanzanite, and it's in my book, Mwana. My earth skin till 6 feet under, for you hold light of birth, my dear melanin so ancient, stained by grace, diverse shades of complexion. I treasure you dear, my body of kingdom civilization. Darkness shining, low skin, dig me deep diamond. And that's called Tanzanite.
Okay. We're proud of you. We're proud of the great work you're doing in the community. Now, Mwana, the published book, if people want to purchase a copy of this book, are there any social media handles they can get, or how do people get in touch with you?
Thank you, Mr. Tony. Yes. So this book is on my website, jacquelinewaziri.com. And you can also find me on Instagram at Jacqueline Waziri, on Facebook, Jacqueline Waziri. And I'm super excited for you to get this copy because it has so many amazing stories, African stories, and just untold stories of my journey from Tanzania to here in the UK. And I'm super excited for you guys to also read this amazing book.
Keep up the great work. We're always proud of you. And there's more to come from Jacqueline Waziri. Visit her site at www.jacquelinewaziri.com.
Thank you, Mr. Tony. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, I've got my parents in the house. I'm just going to bring them on so that we can say hello to them, and I can say hello to them, and also to say a big hello to them. They're under the screen of Stephen Fernandez. Derek, could you unmute Stephen Fernandez, where we have father and mother? I love you very much, and brother and sister.
You're unmuted. Hello, Tony. Hello, everyone.
Hello, Mom and Dad.
It's so nice to be with you today. We've been hoping for some time to go attend the Black History celebration in House of Parliament, but it's not to be, not yet. So we're very happy to be with you today.
Thank you, Mom. And
well, luckily, we have been able to do it at last. Luckily, we have been able to do it at last. We're hoping to be in London this October, but coronavirus has made it impossible. But thank God, thanks to coronavirus, without coronavirus, we wouldn't have. We are very, very happy to hear the speakers. They're doing a very, very good job, and keep on doing a good job. Thank you.
Thank you, Dad. Thank you, Mom. Beautiful to see you both. I love you. I'm going to also shoot down to New Jersey to say hello to my sister, Nicolette and Tiffany. How are you today, Nicolette and Tiffany?
We are doing very well, and we're so happy to be finally part of this event. It's been wonderful, and we thank you all for everyone who joined and everyone who contributed to this. This is such a powerful event, and I hope to see more of this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nikki. Thank you, family. We're going to move to Bristol to say hello. Could you unmute Mrs. Elizabeth Sama Obileye, who is based in Bristol, who's also listening in, who's also launched her new book.
Hello, good evening, everyone.
Hello, madam.
This has caught me by surprise. I wasn't expecting to make any statement. Yes, my name is Elizabeth Sama Obile. Some know me as Elizabeth Sama, that's my maiden name. Others know me as Elizabeth Obile, that's my married name. Yes, it's true, I just published a book that became Amazon #1 international bestseller, to the surprise of everyone, including myself. But it's just a part of my story as well, the untold story that wouldn't have been told if there weren't people strongly behind me, supporting me, one of whom is Tony himself. I call him a taker because that's the name I like for him. And Mr. Michael D. Butler, who actually, if it hadn't been for the fact of coronavirus and we were speaking one-to-one, would probably have boxed me because he did everything to make sure it was published. And each time I was more or less self-sabotaging it. And like I said to him, it brought back memories I wanted to forget. And I didn't know it would have such effect on me, but I'm happy it's now out. In fact, the World Health Organization got in touch with me and said to me, we need to promote people to say what it is they went through. Because if we don't say it, nobody would know that any harm had been done and no actions to be taken to do things even better. And from this same published book, the United Nations retired staff members of England decided to nominate me as the representative for Southwest England. And we're going to launch that again and things. So please, everybody, let's write, let's say what we have gone through, say what we think, so that the others coming behind us will see, would know how to sort themselves out. And when we speak out, because evil abhors light. When we speak out, and a lot of these people know that eventually to come out, they won't do all the funny things they did to us. And then by talking together, we become stronger. And then we're able to use our knowledge together to help the young ones coming after us. As you can see, I'm no longer young, but for so long as I'm here, you can count on me. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for allowing me to take the floor.
Thank you so much. We're going to swiftly move on to Philadelphia. Could you kindly unmute Ferron's iPad so that we can speak to Mrs. Ferron Okewale, the mother of one of the speakers, Roger Okewale. It's so nice to see you. You're looking very radiant today. Madam?
Now, Tony, you've taken me totally by surprise. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Yes, I have been commenting all along with Nikki, telling her how fantastic an event this is. I'm really honored to be sharing this screen with everybody else. I need to get these books too. I've already sent a message to Nikki that I'm after the two with you. I'm after Noama by the young lady that's just done. And I'm trying to find, I just went on to Amazon to see if I could see Mrs. Obile's book. I didn't get the title.
It's Kidnapped.
Kidnapped. Okay.
Taken.
Okay.
Rediscovered.
Good.
Reinvented.
Good. That's it. It's really fantastic, Tony. I follow your page a lot, but I'm so happy that I'm able to see something from you doing this Black History Month with the House of Parliament. Fantastic. Really is. Really.
Thank you so much, madam. Thank you. We're going to move down to Bremen in Germany. Now, this lady traveled all the way from Bremen, Germany last year for our Black History Month celebrations can you unlock, she's another writer, can you unlock Mederek's Clara, please? That's Clara Mederek's. Okay, I think we're having problems getting her. Well, special thanks out. I can't seem to see everyone in the screen.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now, madam.
Okay, hello, good evening. Thank you very much, Tony, and well done. I'm so proud of what you're doing. Well done.
Thank you, and keep up the great work you're doing in Bremen in Germany. Lovely to see you here.
Thank you so much, thank you.
Okay, now